couple things before you get started. You'll want to make sure you have the right tools. What I use is just a little small Phillips head screwdriver. You will also want an extra bit, something like this guy, just a little jeweler's size. Before you get to the LCD screen, you'll need to take the actual computer apart. And so what you'll end up doing is taking the laptop, and you'll remove the touchpad area. It's got some screws under the back. You'll remove the keyboard and the top panel with its cables and things. Once you get here, you can access the hinges. However, it has the cables for the antennas, microphone, webcam, and things like that. And they actually run underneath the motherboard here. So you'll need to take, I think, 5 screws out. And then you can lift up the motherboard very carefully and remove those cables. And then once you have all the wires that go to the LCD panel disconnected, you can loosen, I think it's four screws that will remove the LCD screen, and then you can begin working on the LCD panel. So the first thing we'll want to do when we get to the LCD display is we have 2 really tiny screws in the bottom corners, and they are covered right here. And they are covered with little plastic, looks like the bumpers. And so what I do is I take a tiny, sharp little pry thing and pop these plastic bumpers out. Remove the other side. They're just real tiny. Now once you have those out, you'll want to use your jeweler's size screwdriver. Replace the tip on my screwdriver. And remove these two screws. Now once we have these 2 screws apart, the only thing that holds the bezel to the back of the monitor screen is little plastic retainer clips that sort of hold in to the side. If you can get your fingernail under here, or if you use a guitar pick, don't use anything metal because you'll scratch the screen. And slide your fingernail under this edge, and as you pry outwards, you'll hear it start to disengage. And you just work your way around. Remembering to pry outwards away from the screen. You can see that it's coming out this way. And you may have to work around, if you have a webcam here, work your way into the center. And it'll pop up like so. Once you've gotten to the bottom side, these guys have clips in the top of the hinge, so you'll want to lift up and pull it out this way. Once you make sure you have all the little hooks disengaged. So you go just like so. It should disengage. So once you have this bezel off, you can just set it to the side, and you have to do 4 screws, 2 at the top corners, 2 at the bottom corners. We remove these very carefully. And now we should be able to remove the LCD panel. I'm just going to get my finger into the top corner here, and it should just lift out. Disengage this tape, and we'll turn this over. Last thing we need to do is disengage the cables from the actual monitor panel. And this one has a piece of tape here. You need to be very careful as you take this out that you don't damage the circuitry on the inverter, because it's very fragile. So we'll pry this up a little bit. And when you get to the connector, be very careful not to pry it up or down or anything like that. It needs to go straight out. With just maybe a little side-to-side wiggle to get it loose. And once that disengages, you can remove your old panel and bring in the new one. And assembly should be precisely the reverse of your disassembly. So the first thing you'll do is reconnect your main connector. This is kind of the hard part. You want to make sure that it's all the way locked in and evenly so. Alright, and in this case the tape here is still good, so I'm going to reattach this tape, because if this guy pops loose, your screen's not going to work. So you want to, if you don't have tape here, maybe get a piece of Scotch tape or something, lay it over there, not on the circuitry, but on this frame, so that it stays connected. Once we've done this, we'll just lay the panel back into the frame, being careful not to damage your inverter. And it should just lay right back down. There we go. And now we will replace the 4 screws that hold the panel into the monitor. One thing of note here is the cable that runs along here actually runs between, you can see it has, right here we've got the screw and then a little stud, and this cable runs between those two and then back down through the hinge. Alright, the next step is to replace the bezel. In this case, the reverse of how we took it off, we'll latch it at the hinges and then roll it down. So at each hinge, we want to make sure that the cables that come from the panel are not binding. And slip it in like so. Snap it down as it goes across. And once the latches at the top of the hinge are hooked, you go around and snap the plastic bezel back on all the way around. You should hear it snap in as it goes. And once you're done, you shouldn't see any cracks here, and the inside of the bezel should lay flat against the panel. And the last step as we do this is to take our small jeweler's screwdriver and replace the 2 small screws. And then take these little rubber dots. You may have to sort of nudge them in with your screwdriver and press them down a little bit. If by some chance you have damaged the adhesive on the back of those and they don't stick very well, get a small piece of double stick Scotch tape. Will work very well. You'll have to just trim it so that it fits this hole, but that you can replace that adhesive with double stick Scotch. And this should be your panel back together, ready for reinstallation.